Hello and welcome to Maygar Barracks in sunny downtown Broadmeadows in Melbourne. We're here at the 4 Combat Service Support Battalion and we're here to talk about Army Reserves and all things Army Reserves, and we've got 3 fantastic Army Reservists with us and some more that we'll talk to as well. So if you've got any questions about what it's like to be an Army Reservist, ask them now. We're here to answer your questions. So I think it's great to introduce who we've got to talk to. Jared, tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Jared. I'm a driver in the Australian Reserves. I transferred from the full-time a year ago, and I'm currently a full-time student at La Trobe University studying events management and marketing.
Awesome. And Shan?
Hi everyone, my name's Shan. I'm an admin assistant in the reserve. I've been in for about 12 months now, so freshly through Kapuka. So if you've got any questions to ask about my experiences recently, feel free to send them on through. Outside of the reserve, I work for the Department of Health and Human Services in the emergency management area. So I guess working with local councils and police and the fire brigade with the response to emergencies and looking at the sociable aspects of the recovery and relief systems.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm a cook in the Army Reserve. I've been doing this for about 3 years, and outside of that, like Jared, I also study. I'm in my last year of a degree in a Bachelor of Illustration at Melbourne Polytechnic.
Awesome. So we've got a range of different people and a range of different experiences in terms of you to draw on. So if you've got questions about Army Reserve, now's the time to ask them. We're going to preempt one of your questions, we think, which is what typically happens on a Tuesday night. And we've got some footage of Dan that we shot earlier, and we'll just run to that. Daniel, we're obviously in your kitchen here. What does a normal Tuesday night look like for you?
Okay, most Tuesdays myself and the other cooks come in here. We've got 3 hours starting at 7, and we have the luxury of cooking, so we've got a fully set up kitchen here. We've got fridges, we've got dry stores, and whatever we make at the end of the night is served to the officers and sergeants mess. So it ranges from finger food through to larger items, pizzas, breads, depending on any training we're doing. One night we had one of our best corporals show us how to completely debone a chicken, stuff it, cook it, and make a full roulade. So we cut that into slices and had a French themed bunch of snacks that we were able to serve. But there's a lot of creativity in it. We get to work with whatever food we've got. We get to decide what food we bring in, and it's an opportunity to learn from the more experienced members here, and it's something we can take away to our own lives.
Awesome. So every Tuesday night is a little bit different in terms of what you're making and what you're doing.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of creativity in it. So even if there's a specific direction, like a lesson on bread making, for instance, each of us will be able to research something that we would like to make, and under the direction of our corporals or our sergeant, have a go at making that. So it's a team effort, but everyone gets to... It's rewarding because you have something that you yourself have made.
So Linda, tell me a bit. And we're back. So hopefully that gave you a bit of insight on what Dan does on a Tuesday night. Now that experience is going to be different for everyone, really. And we'll get to I suppose what the other guys do. So in the meantime, there's been a whole bunch of questions come through. So thanks for that. I'll move through some of these questions now, and we'll go straight into it. So Cameron Sheldon asks, once you're through basic training, what is your commitment to attendance at your local unit? I'm sure I could go out to anyone, but let's start with you, Joe.
Yeah, I'll go. So the minimum days you are required to attend a year is 20 days to be considered active at the unit. This is probably the best answer, if you guys are similar with that.
Yeah. Same.
Awesome. So, and you know, speaking about your own commitments, what I suppose is the last 12 months of your Army Reserve commitment look like?
For me personally, when I transferred over from full-time, I was still lucky enough as a reserve to go on an exercise in Adelaide, and I was still working alongside full-timers, still like transferring skills across board, which was really good because, yeah, it's interesting, I guess.
Fantastic. we'll keep going into some of the questions and work through it. So, Eamon Coulthard asks, what sort of work would you be doing on a Tuesday night? So obviously, Dan, we saw what you do. Sian, what sort of work would you go through on a Tuesday night, understanding that you're still in some of those training elements?
So on a Tuesday night when I come in, I work in the orderly room, which I guess you could call kind of like the main office of our unit. So I'll come in and I'll do any personal administration that I need to get done, and also any administration tasks that the unit might have to help them with their day-to-day operations. For example, processing roll books and things like that to make sure all the members get paid on time. So things like that. Also, some other nights we might do some training sessions where we'll run that with all of the clerks or more of the unit in general. And sometimes even we'll go through some personal training sessions to have that to make sure we're maintaining our fitness levels that are required.
Awesome. So we're going to cover this off again a number of different times. What you do on your Tuesday night it depends on the unit you're in, and it depends on the role that you're doing. So Jared, as a driver specialist, what does your Tuesday night?
No, it's pretty interesting because you get around the vehicles, which I love, because there's multiple things we do on the Tuesday night. So it can be driving vehicles, minor servicing, so checking tyres, oils, fluids. So you're becoming more familiar with different variants. So myself, I recently got qualified in the Bushmaster, which is an awesome piece of equipment that Australia has, which is off-terrain heavy armoured. Or there's the Mac series, which is a heavy vehicle, or there's the Unimog. So there's a wide range we can play with on the Tuesday nights.
Okay, lots of different things to look at. So I'm sure we'll come back to different experiences around that. But I'll keep going through the questions. Got any questions about Army Reserve, what the training's like, what you do? Now's the time to ask it, and we can get it answers for you here. Now, Deborah Marie asks, I'm scared to try out the fitness test as a lady. Sian, can you offer any insights in terms of how you found the fitness elements of Army Reserve training?
Well, they make you very clear about what the requirements are when you first go to your information sessions, and also they offer a lot of additional supports for females going through it. So they have training sessions that you can do down in Melbourne, where you can go along every week to practice and get your basic fitness up. I was lucky enough to be quite fit already before I got in, but I did train just to make sure that I'd passed those initial standards that were set prior to going off to Kapooka for the initial training. But they are very supportive, and they do make you well aware, and there are certain training programs that you can download from online that can help you do your own stuff in your own personal time as well. So pretty supportive with it, yeah. Okay.
So fitness is part of being involved in the Army or the Army Reserves. From a male perspective, Dan, how do you find it in terms of fitness? Is it a challenge? Is it something you can just do?
It can be a challenge. Most of the time, once you're fit enough, like once you've gone through Kapooka and you know you're at that standard, I feel that it's something that's quite easy to maintain day to day. So if you go to the gym regularly or even semi-regularly, if you walk or run, I'm a cyclist, so simply cycling every day is enough to keep me at a level where I can maintain my fitness commitments to the Army. You can go above and beyond that if you want, and there are plenty of people in the Army who love doing more. So you've always got people around who are up for going for a ride or doing some exercise, and it's part of that camaraderie that's built. But once you pass that initial stage, and as you point out, there's a lot of information there about how to build up to that if you're not there yet. But once you're there, then easy enough to maintain.
The Defence Jobs website does have all the information there. There is an ADF fitness app as well, and there's a new one coming later in the year, so keep an eye out for that. But there's plenty of support with fitness, so don't let that be a barrier for you to find out more. Harry Guilford asks, are most units doing parade on a Tuesday night? So I think the answer is yes. All the Army Reserve units do have Tuesday night as their night.
General consensus is all of us do Tuesday nights. So.
It's pretty flexible though, so if you can't make a week for whatever particular reason, that's normally fine as well. And there are parades on the weekends occasionally too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Matt Sticky asks, is it pretty common for reserves to get deployed? Dan, you've got a story.
Yeah, I'll field this one. There are a number of different types of deployments. I'll just explain that first. There's operational, which is what you'd think of as sort of war zones, but there's also non-operational. The Army does a lot of work in a number of countries where we're either doing training or we're helping out building projects with locals. And as a reservist, we're soldiers first and foremost. So being a reservist, it's being a soldier, but we're not doing that full time. So we're expected to have that same capability. I was fortunate enough 2 years ago, I believe, to go along and support as a cook a group of engineers in Papua New Guinea. So we were in just outside Port Moresby. So my role, I was cooking. My job's all about morale. So I was making sure that the people who were going out, building fences, fixing pipes, doing all the heavy lifting, had enough nutrition and food that they could look forward to get through their day. But as a reservist, you can never be forced to go on deployment. It's something that's offered. And if you're in a position, if you have enough flexibility in your schedule between university, work or family commitments, then it's a great thing to do. It's one of the most rewarding things that I've done with the Army so far.
Awesome. So I guess that's not everyone can get to go on a deployment, but there are opportunities, and it is in terms of when the opportunity comes up, and you do have the choice whether that's something you'd like to do in the reserves. So keep coming back to it. It is a flexible offering if that's what you decide to do. Evan Casey asked a great question, especially for reservists. How receptive have your employers been with reserves? I understand it's illegal for them to have issues, but I'm curious to sort of see how it works in the real world. Chan, probably the best person to...
Yeah, well, I'm pretty lucky working for the public service. My employer's really supportive, and there is an employer support program where they can get some funding as well in order to release me for certain time periods. But we get a lot of notice before we're required to go away for training, or if we need a day off for a particular reason, then we've got a lot of notice. So as long as the notice is there and they can plan for that operationally themselves, then that's no trouble. They're pretty supportive.
That's right. There is that Defence Support Council, Defence Services Support Council, and they do they exist there to support employers and reservists in getting that flexibility. There are payments available for employers, so it shouldn't be a barrier for you to have a look at.
And there's another good program as well where your employees can actually go along to the Defence or to the Army for a weekend, so they can see what it's like and join in and see some of the things that you're able to do on a day-to-day basis. My boss wasn't able to do it this year, but they're keen to do it in the years to come.
And I guess one of the other things is that it does raise those questions about you're bringing additional skills. So you know, the Army Reserve is teaching you skills and other experiences that you can bring into the workplace. So it's not a straight take relationship. There's a mutual level of giving there. So good question, Evan. Ben Pollock, I'm heading to Kapuka on Tuesday. Any advice?
Have fun. No, you'll love it. I guess, just make sure you've met those fitness standards so you can pass those initial fitness tests that are there. And one tip that no one really told me was with the caffeine and the sugar, maybe taper down those in the weeks leading up to it, because you'll be deprived of those on the first few weeks. So you might get a bit of a caffeine headache or a sugar withdrawal headache. So that's probably a good tip to take away.
Yeah, I'll throw one more point in there. My best friend and housemate's going along to Kapuka in a couple of months, so yeah, I second everything Shan said. I'd just add that they want you to succeed. So the corporals, all the sergeants, all the officers who are there providing you the training, they really want you to do well and get through. So don't take anything there personally. They're not trying to give you a hard time, they want to get the best out of you. So as long as you're going in with a positive attitude, you'll be fine.
There you go. Good luck. It will be a bit of a change, but
you'll love it.
You'll love it. You may not love it at the time. There might be some challenging points, but you'll definitely look back on it and as a great sense of achievement. So good luck. Ben Lawson's asked, do you have full-time Army Reserve? And I guess don't know whether there is the continuous full-time service available for particular roles. I'm not sure whether any of you guys have done the CFTS.
I have done. I'll
Yep.
take this if you want. There is a cap on the number of days you can do as a reservist. I think it's 150.
Yeah, 100. 150.
Around 100. You can, if you want to do more, like if you're offered an opportunity to go overseas, then you go onto something called a continuous full-time contract. So CFTS for short. And so during that time that you're on that contract, you're essentially treated as a full-time soldier. So that allows you to go and contribute more if you have an opportunity to do some work in another state with another unit, or if you simply want to do more work at your current unit. So it's a halfway point between being a reservist and being a full-time member. And if you really like that, it could be a stepping stone to becoming full-time.
Yep. So hopefully that answers your question. So yes, there is, but it's it's meant to be a flexible thing, and if there's the right opportunity, then that can work for you. Feels Good asks, how do you balance being in the Army Reserves and also having a regular job and a social life outside of the ADF? And you guys are all sitting in that, so Jared?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Because I'm at uni full-time Army as well. The great thing about Army Reserve I found for me personally was how flexible it is. You notify them, you can, as Shay, you've said, you can come back in later. And if need to, you can even pick up more days, come in and help out. So for me personally, they work really well. If you just tell them what your commitments are, same with university, they're really flexible with the Army, so yeah.
Tuesday nights, there's not normally much going down anyway, so you're not missing out on too much, other than the occasional Taco Tuesday night out.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, maybe bring Taco Tuesday to Broad Meadows out here. It could be happening. Nathan Flanagan asked, I'm ex-ARA, did 10 years and been out since 07. How do I go about getting back in? And Brett Rowe also asked, thinking about getting back in. So, look, I can answer that one. Call 131902 because you've been in there and ask to restart your application. And they'll certainly help you and take you from there. So give it a shot and get back in. Got some other questions here. Sorry, here we go. Is there any age? This one's probably aimed at you, Dan. They're interested in your chef career. Is there any particular age that you need to be to go in as a cook?
No, it's the same age restrictions as any trade. So I think that's, I want to say 18.
It's 16 and a half. You need to be 16 and a half before you can apply to join.
Okay, but yeah, so no change on the age restrictions, and you don't need any chefing or cooking experience coming in. They will teach you everything. Even if you don't know how to hold a knife properly, they will start with that and work all the way through. So don't let age be the thing that holds you back.
Another question here. That last one was from Yasmin. Apologies for the pronunciation here, but Rangahoya asked, what's it like to be a woman in the Army?
I don't see it as any different in being a woman in my usual day-to-day job, really. Everyone's really respectful. Everyone agrees to the Army values and they're pretty committed to that. I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why we're all here. There's great opportunities. It's great. I think it's a good time to be in the Army too, because it's a really positive culture in that sense too.
Fantastic. Another question here, this one can be anyone. So Imogen Palmer asks, what's basic training at Kapuka like?
Tiring. They're big long days. You're up at 6 in the morning and you go through till 10 o'clock at night, and it's non-stop all day. You get, if you're lucky, half an hour for lunch, but normally that's condensed quite short depending on how well behaved you've been in the morning before lunchtime. And it's just full on the classes, lessons, drill, which is marching and parading. Weapons, we do navigation, first aid. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you do, and it's definitely, you don't have time to get in trouble, that's for sure. My favourite parts was though the food in the mess. It's really good spread, and you'll really enjoy that. It's the best part of the day. So.
And you're burning so much energy that.
Yeah, it's amazing. You
great.
pile up your plates, and it's amazing how quickly you can get through it by the end of the 5 weeks.
Anything to add from your memories?
I reckon the best thing, the mates you make through the tough times, I guess you'd call it, and the good times. You look back on it and you just laugh because you're on the same boat. And at the end of the day, you just like.
Yeah, that concept of mateship.
Yeah, that's it.
And you still keep in touch with those mates?
Yeah. Like, you could go a few months without seeing them, but nothing's changed when you do catch up, which is one of the best things about the army, I reckon, personally.
No, well, and it's a constant theme that comes up all the time, is the mateship and the people that you meet. Some more questions. Jacinta Louise asks, how long is the initial training for the Army Reserves if you're applying for a legal officer position? So it depends on whether you're going through as a special service officer or as an FAC, going through as a first appointment course. We've actually got some vision of one of the other guys, Chris, who just completed his Army officer training. So that's probably the best time to go through that particular footage. So we'll cross to that now. So Chris, tell me a bit about what your training's been like on your journey to become an Army Reserve officer.
So it took me about 2.5 years to get to the first appointment course. First off, I went to Kapooka, as every soldier in the Army Reserve goes to first. Completed the 4-week training block there. From there we went to the School of Infantry, and over 2 years I completed 3 2-week blocks, going from being a 2IC to a section commander, and then being assessed as a platoon commander and platoon sergeant. The final assessment was to go to the Royal Military College of Duntroon, where we were there for a month and assessed on being a platoon commander out in the field.
Awesome. So that sort of training, is that about standard in the standard sort of timeline it takes to become an officer in the Army Reserve?
It is, yeah. So I've seen some of my friends have been able to complete the course in around about 18 months, but most of my mates took around about 2.5 years, stretching out to 3 or 4 years depending on their civilian commitments.
And that's it, you've got to try and fit all this in with a full-time job as well?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
So now you're here, you've completed all your training. Are you looking forward to applying what you've learned?
Yeah, so I was posted out to Force Sisby around 3 months ago, and I was lucky enough to get a troop of 42 personnel, so it's been pretty good out here. I've been able to lead and mentor and coach the new drivers coming through the Sisby.
Hopefully that gave you a bit more insight into, I suppose, what goes into being an officer and the training that goes every Tuesday night is Reserve. In comparison, you're going through it as a soldier. It is how long is it now at Kapooka?
I went through for 5 weeks, or 35 days I was away for.
35 days at Kapooka, and then your initial employment training will vary depending on the role that you're doing. So for your particular role?
For my particular role, it's 3 lots of 16 days that I go away. Yep. So I've done my first lot of 16 days earlier in this year, and I'll do my next lot in October this year.
And Dan, what was your initial employment training like, if you can remember that?
Okay, it was similar. So as a cook, there were 2 16-day lots, and I remember going along to the first one. It was maybe a month after I'd come out of Kapooka, and it was just such a warm, friendly environment. It was in a great big warehouse with 5 other guys who were fresh out of Kapooka as well. We're all trained, ready to become cooks, and we had a lot of contact hours. So a wonderful sergeant cook who sat down, and just for hours every day we sat at stoves, we cut vegetables, we learned how to sharpen knives, fillet, debone, all these technical skills building up, and we got to eat everything that we cooked, so it was felt like a holiday. It was great.
Awesome. So it does sort of depend, but hopefully that answers your question about what's involved. Each particular role will have all the details on defence jobs, so have a look there. That's the best place for information. Diana Carey asked, what are the education level requirements for reserves? The answer with that is, in short, it depends. So you need a minimum of year 10. And if you're doing officer roles, it's year 12, and some of the other specialist roles will require a tertiary degree. But they're pretty much the education requirements. Jack Rea asked, how did you approach your employer? So I don't know whether it's probably best at you, Shan.
Yeah, well, I'd already been doing a little bit of volunteer work with my employer, so they kind of knew that I was into that type of thing, I guess. So just having an open, honest discussion with them during one of my supervision regular catch-ups, mentioned that it was something that I was interested in before I went along to my first session. And once I got their support, then I really engaged in and looked into it a little bit further and booked in for my initial U session and went down to get some more information at that stage. So yeah, just being open and honest with them from the get-go.
Awesome. Keep the questions coming. You want to ask any Army Reserve questions? Now's your chance. Dan Beck asks, how often do you work with other forces? Jared, you able to sort of answer that? I suppose your last experience.
Yeah, so the last exercise I did, it's actually really, really cool. You get to we worked with the Americans, and then you're obviously working with the Air Force and Navy on massive exercises, and also I believe we worked with the Japanese Army as well, and that's getting involved with driving tasks, anything to like digging pits, I guess, as well. So all a heap of fun stuff. But yeah, that's my experience with working with a few other services.
So it needs to just be a large exercise, which
generally,
typically occurs, I don't know, once a year or so.
Yeah.
Generally, but it does depend on the unit. But there are opportunities. Moving along. So Matt Daniels, how often and how long do reserves go away on training camps? So, Dan, what's probably your experience there typically when you're not going to Papua New Guinea?
It depends. So you've got your regular Tuesday nights, and then you've got weekend courses, which just builds on that training. And from there you'd have 2-week-long exercises, similar to what Jared was saying. These are typically held out in very large, expansive areas, and you've got thousands of people out there. At one of these last year, there were, I think, something like 8,000 people, including American Marines, including, I think, some Air Force, and a lot of Army, and spread over a massive area. So everyone is doing their own little thing. It's all working together, and in our roles, support roles, we slot in. So for me, I'm in a kitchen with 50 other cooks, and we're just pumping out like 800 meals like every meal time that get trucked off to different people. So things like that, there'd be maybe 2 major ones a year, and it's great if you can get along to one of them, depending again on the flexibility of your schedule.
Okay, cool. Clayton Edmonds asked, this goes out to all of them, is the ADF a rewarding career experience? Anyone?
Well, we'll go around.
Yeah, I'll start with you.
I reckon it was amazing. For me personally, again, it goes back to the mateships, and especially if the trades I gained as a driver were transferable. The driving qualifications, you don't need any driving experience, you don't need a driver's license. That goes through all the driving initial employment training, I guess. And yeah, so skills and mates, I personally, were the best things I grabbed from going through the Army.
Yeah, I agree. The mate, as we've talked about a few times, the mateship, you can't really comprehend it until you go through such, I guess, tough times together. It's really amazed me quite a bit, the mateship that's come from some of the friendships that we've developed. And in addition to that, I guess there's the financial side of things too, which is rewarding. It's tax-free money. Then you get other bonuses for every time that you attend, and also there's a health bonus to help you keep your health and fitness up every year as well if you meet all the medical and fitness requirements. So there's that financial side of things as well, which is definitely adds to the reward of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that we haven't really focused on, but is a tangible benefit. You know, it's not a volunteer organisation. You do get paid for what you do, and the money that you earn is tax-free. So what you get is all yours. So cool. We'll keep going through all the different questions. Diana Carey asked, where are the units around Sydney? Jump onto defence jobs website, go to the reserves experience, and there's actually a unit locator, and you'll be able to find the unit around Sydney. So give that a shot, and there are definitely a number of them. There's at least, I can't remember how many around Melbourne, there's at least 6, so there'll be something similar in your local area. Monique Bragg is asking a question, I think, about the aptitude test, or about the test. She says, what knowledge do you have to know before the test, and what do you need to know while in the army? I suppose, I think she's asking about the aptitude test. Can you remember what it was like?
Yeah, you don't have to study or anything for it. The aptitude test is more so about getting a list of job roles that are specific to your skill set, so you can go into something that you'll enjoy and you'll be rewarded with, and you'll be able to do well. So it's more about helping you with your career pathways and working out where you want to go. So it's, I guess, a mutually beneficial thing for you and for the army as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about the aptitude side of things.
And I'll just tag on that. I think attitude matters just as much as aptitude. That provided you meet a minimum threshold for whatever job you're looking at, if you work hard at it and you've got a lot of enthusiasm for performing that role well, then that'll take you so much further than what one little test at the start does. So I'd say don't worry. There are websites where you can practice some of them, particularly for some where it is a pass-fail. For instance, if you want to be, say, a combat engineer, then you need to have more of a, say, math background. But for most jobs, you don't need a whole lot of study.
Cool.
That's fair to say.
Simone Sarah asked a question. Once you're in, done your training, etc., how easy is it to access further training and courses which may take your fancy? Personal development, skills, etc. Do the reservists have opportunities for further education? Probably, could go to Jared, Dan, I might. You're always training, aren't you? There's always something.
Well, I'll start. As a driver, there's courses run all throughout the year, and that's not just in Melbourne either. Like last year, I went to Brisbane to get a 20-tonne trailer course. There's courses for any trade that's out there. You go to your unit or your people above you, your corporals, and you ask what you're actually interested in, and more than likely they'll be there and they'll help you get the course you want. For me, anyway, yeah.
Awesome. And Dan, have you done further training, or it's more about further experiences for yourself?
It's mostly been further experiences. As you progress, so as you go from private to Lance Corporal or Corporal, there are additional forms of training that are specific to rank. So I'm not at that point just yet, but there's a lot of training which is done just on your regular Tuesdays. So in our kitchen, we've got a couple of really great corporals who have a ton of experience, so they'll sit down and run us through what they know. So that's not formal, structured training, but if you let your chain of command know that you're interested in something, like you were saying, Jared, if you really want a particular course, then they'll do a lot to get you on it.
Awesome. So there's all sorts of different vehicles, learning different courses, leadership courses, promotional courses. So it's not a stagnant sort of role, which probably leads on a little bit into Harry Gifford's got a question. What do you do on the weekends away once a month? I think you've got one coming up soon that some of you can talk about.
I'll go.
Yeah, that's cool.
The most recent one we did was actually really sick. It was sand driving down in Warrnambool.
Oh yeah.
And we took Unimogs and I think it was Land Rovers, different vehicles, and we deflated the tyres, actually played around going over these different types of sand dunes and testing the vehicle's capability really. And that also involved using winches to pull each other out if we did happen to get bogged. So that was like a past weekend that we did for a driving weekend.
So some people would do that on a weekend
normally.
for fun, and you did that.
And got paid.
I got paid. It was tough.
That's
Did you get bogged?
No.
Oh, yeah, of course. Never. Yep. I think there's another one coming up for you guys as well in terms of that you're going to do down in HMAS Cerberus. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's one this weekend coming up to test us our craft skills. So yeah, that will be happening too.
So Once again, it depends, is the simple answer, Harry, but there's lots of different variety depending on your trade and what you're doing. So there's always something going on. Dan Beck, what's your favourite part of being a reservist? Who's got the most passionate front of mind answer?
New experiences.
Yep.
That I never thought I'd be in the army. We don't have a history of it in the family, and I can't remember exactly what led me to sign up, but I've been able to experience so much more than I thought when I came in, and the people have been so different to what I thought. People have got so many different backgrounds, experiences, jobs, that it's like a regular workplace. It's not as if everyone is the same, and that adds to it. So again, going back to that idea of mateship, that we're all in this together and we're all working for a common goal. And I think as long as you believe in that and understand that this job is about service and support, and if that's something that resonates with you, then you'll find a home in the army. And that doesn't matter whether you're full-time or reserve, we're all putting in equally, and it feels really good to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Well said.
Yeah, that was really good.
I got nothing else. It sounds like there's lots of different favourite parts, but whether that be bashing through the dunes and getting paid for it, or whether it be giving back to the community or learning new experiences, there's a lot going on. Jason Candy asks, once you join, how long do you serve until you can leave? Army Reserve.
No commitment.
There's no commitment. So it's up to you, Jason. But most people get in and commit to it until it comes a time when it doesn't suit them. So Fraser Hotchkiss asks, would you recommend reserve over full time? If yes, why? Jared, you're the only one with multiple experiences.
So there's benefits for both, obviously, but I found reserves transferring from the full-time extremely flexible. Being able to undertake a full-time degree and also have another part-time job as well, it works really well for me. This is my situation, but I'd say reserves is really good. You still get that mateship, you're still challenging yourself, I guess, and sand driving weekends. There's so many fun experiences, I guess. So there's benefits for both.
Yeah. The other one, and I think we've got some footage, is probably to explain one of the other roles as well. And she talks about, I suppose, what her role is and how her flexible, how she's able to work with a flexible lifestyle as well. So we'll run to that footage as well. So Linda, tell me a bit about what you do here.
Well, Nick, I'm a supply operator here. I've been operating here for about 9 years at Fort Sisby. Soldiers come to us with a request from things from shoelaces to food, vehicles sometimes that we may have, to weapons, and they'll request it from us and we'll issue to them.
Awesome. So you're responsible for all the equipment and making sure it goes to where it needs to go.
Correct. We own stuff.
You own stuff, lots of stuff. And the Army Reserve is different things to different people. So how's been your commitment to the Army Reserve?
Yeah, good question. For 9 years, this has been my part-time job. I started doing it because I had a hobby and I wanted to fund my hobby, and I thought I'll do Army Reserve. I was doing Taekwondo at the time, and I thought come and get some fun and pay for my hobby. In that time, I balanced my career and my family, my career, and then my part-time Army Reserve. So I give them the minimum requirement for me to come here is do 20 days a year, but there's more work than that. So I'll come here every Tuesday night, one weekend a month, and a couple of weeks a year. That's great. There's plenty of work, and it's been fulfilling ever since. But again, I say family, civilian job, army job.
So you're juggling all three. So
All three.
You've got a couple of kids, or
2 teenage sons. One's in VCE, so there's a lot of give and take at the moment, and there's a lot of home and a lot of work, and there's a lot. It piles up, but I balance.
okay.
And if I can't come in, I can't come in.
Cool. So, welcome back. We're still here. It is pretty cool out here in the wonderful world of Broadmeadows, but we're here to answer your questions still. So get them coming through if you've got questions about Army Reserves. Matt Daniels has a question here. How long between application and going to Kapooka? I want to apply now, but can't go away for about 2 months. Well, Matt, it'll take longer than that to go through the application process. It's thorough. How long was your experience, Sian, from application
I think it was about 2 months going through the actual application process, and then once I was enlisted, I think it was about 5 weeks before I actually went to Kapooka. So I actually came down to parade here a few times before I actually went off, which was really beneficial. So yeah, probably about three months all up.
My suggestion is start your application now, tonight even, if you like, and there will be no problems in that 2 month break. They really do try and, once again, be flexible about trying to get you the right dates that work for you and your employer. Good question. Imogen Palmer, I've got my assessment day this Thursday. Do you have any tips? Who can remember their assessment day?
I guess just have a flick over the website, have a look at the different job roles that you might be interested in. I just guess be familiar with the values and with all the information contained on the website for all the fitnesses that you need to do, the I guess key requirements.
If you check out the website, I'm going to keep going back to the website. All the information is on the website. There's many pages, but go through that and just be familiar about what your role is, and be aware of what you're signing up for, because they're the questions that they'll ask. They want to make sure that you know what you are ready for. You know what the training is, and you know what the commitment is, as well as it is flexible.
And that you're committed. Yeah.
You want to know that you're committed and you're clear about what you're going into. Any other tips? Any other hot tips than what you can remember?
Maybe have a look at some of the exercises that are going on at the moment and some of the operations that are taking place too. That will show that you're pretty keen and interested in things too.
Cool. Slava Brilli asks, is it difficult to be in the Army Reserves if you have mild asthma? So it's difficult for us. I'm not a doctor, so we can't answer those questions exactly. It is a case-by-case basis, and when you go in it's one of those things that you're going to have to apply to find out. But if it's mild asthma, then yes, it certainly is possible. There's some frequently asked questions, but at the use session, they will help you understand whether it's possible or not. Hopefully that's helpful. Just looking how we go. So Charles asks, can I still join if I've been in jail before? That's another one of those case-by-case bases. It depends on many things, and it's one of those things that you'll have to go through, apply, and find out whether you can or you can't. Keep the questions coming. Dale Koshel asks, how do you go getting in as a qualified trade? Well, if Army Reserve is pretty keen for qualified trades. So it's simply a matter of going to the website, checking what jobs are available that match your trade, and putting in your application. Well, here we go. Riley Tamparama, sorry, apologies for that poor pronunciation. Tamarapa asks, what is the best job?
The driver.
Loaded question. Driver specialist, cook.
Look, I'm going to look right down the
Bit of a
camera
Fight
and
Club.
say that if you're outfield, while other people are doing like amazing work, being infantry, driving tanks, all of that, if you're a cook, warm place to sleep, hot computer and hot meals, every meal. So I reckon I've got the best job, but I'm a little biased.
why walk when you can drive? Like, same with me.
See, I think with your role, at least we get to eat the food while it's fresh. You have to wait till we've all eaten before you get to eat it. So I think there's some bonuses to other roles as well.
Andy Phillips asks, do you get paid overtime?
No.
It's a daily rate.
Yeah, same standard.
Yeah, it's a daily rate. So the answer to that question is no. But there are different rates depending on different pay rates depending on
Your job role
and also
how much training you've done.
and whether you're outfield or not outfield. I
Yeah,
think
there's
as well.
allowances that you could get to.
So there's different levels of compensation around that. All right, just lost place in my questions. Keep all the questions coming, and I'll get to as many of them as I can. Paid overtime. We've covered all that. Can you explain what the medical test is? Can you remember what a quick overview of that? There is stuff on the website, but
Yeah, so the medical testing, you just go in to see a clinician and they just take you through a full range of, I guess, physical movements and tests, and you do, I guess, some blood tests and urine tests, and there is a psychological test as well where you meet with a psychologist and just ask a few questions, mainly about, I guess, your motivations for wanting to be in the army and about your history. And there was just the one day of the medical testing from what I remember. When we went to Kapuka, we also did some dental testing and a few other tests like that as well, but that's my recollection of it.
Juliet Savin asks, do you get to choose the unit that you belong to?
You can, so you can look up at a particular unit when you're joining and see what jobs are available at that particular unit. So if you weren't particularly interested in a particular job role, that is another option that I know some people do. They go for the unit and they see what jobs are there, and they might like to go down that avenue if they're not too fussy about which particular role they were going into. So that's another option for people too.
At the same time, some jobs are specific to a location. So depending on the role, you might not have a choice, but it would still be in your home city and shouldn't be too hard to get to.
Cool. Pramod Gandwana, apologies for that. Do you have any logistics jobs? Depends on your definition of logistics, but that's what you guys do.
Yeah, we all fall under logistics. That's our call. So
whether it be transport, supply, operator supply, administration, all logistics. So plenty of logistics jobs. Moving along here, Juliet Savin asks, do you need to go to Kapuka to be a specialty officer? I'm not sure whether all the officers do go to Kapuka or whether
I believe it's just reservists.
Yeah. So, and if you're a specialty officer, I have to have a look on defence jobs about that. I can't answer that one off the top of my head. So have a look at the job role that you need on defence jobs, and then look at the education and training requirements, and it'll tell you there for sure. Andrew McInerney asks, how did you younger guys find basic training with the older guys? Can anyone remember having older members in their platoon at basic training?
Yeah.
I was one of the old ones. I'm 32, so I was probably at the upper end of the age bracket for my platoon, I'd say.
Yeah, we had like 40-year-olds, and they were harder than some of the young guys as well. They were just motivated, and they would show us up most of the time as well. So it's good.
It just that they were there they wanted to get through.
Yeah, and like everyone's supporting each other. It comes back to mateship again, I guess. But everyone's there to look after each other, and they would normally help us, generally push us and keep us going, kind of.
Okay. So hopefully, good question, Andrew. Hopefully that answers. So age is not a barrier, and everyone's wearing the same uniform. So that seems to be definitely the case. Billy Nguyen asks, where and when can I apply for the Army? defencejobs.gov.au, or you can give 1391 a call, and you can do that now. Do you go straight away? No. It will be some time, and that would probably be in the months from the time of application before you choose the date that you'll go away to do your basic training. Hopefully that answers your question. How do you schedule reservist life with uni life? That's from Mark Reed. So Jared or Dan, how do you mix it up?
Okay, well, from personal experience, my university's been incredibly accommodating. I went to Kapuka halfway through my first year, and I've been away on exercises and overseas with the Army a couple of times, and each time that's fallen over some semester time. So I found just being upfront right from the start and telling my lecturers, here's what I'm doing, here's why I feel it's beneficial, and here's how long it's expected to take. So personally, I haven't had any problem with it. They've been really great. They've given me plenty of time to catch up on anything I've missed. And if, like, just in case there is any problem, there are support services for reservists that will talk to either an employer or a university on your behalf, just to explain that this person is going on a CFTS contract, or this person does need to fulfill their minimum 20-day requirements, and they will do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. But like I said, personally, I haven't had any problems with it.
Yeah, mine's exactly the same as Jen. If you notify them, they're really sweet, especially with my university. They've allowed me to have extensions in some cases if I'm going away on exercise, but most of the big commitments with reserves, if you are needing to pick up more work during the semester breaks, which works really well, so you can earn a bit of extra cash if you need to, I guess.
Yeah. No one's going to say no to extra tax-free cash. So lots of different questions here. Lots of questions about overtime. Thanks, guys. I think we've covered that. Kayla O'Brien asked, what were your experiences with the full-time Army compared to reserves, Jared? I know you sort of touched on that before. What do you reckon the key differences are?
Full-time Army is obviously, it's a full-time commitment. It's a job it's a bit different to every other, because you can work Monday to Fridays, I guess, but there are the different occasions where you will be going out field a part of your job for either 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and that can be all around Australia, which is one of the best things as well about full-time. I got to travel to like Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide, so yeah.
Well, yeah, so I think, yeah, it's different, and hopefully that answers your question, Kayla. There's lots of questions about people who are a little bit older and asking about whether they would fit. So there's one here from Rob, he's an accountant in his late 40s. There's another one saying that they're 50, can they join? You can join until your late 50s. Just have a look at the website, look at the requirements in terms of the health requirements, the fitness requirements, and some of the jobs that you'd like to do. And then the next one is to give it a go. You won't know until you give it a go, and it could be one of the greatest things that you do. There is an age limit, but I believe it's like 50. It's late 50s, so there's still years for you to provide your commitment. We've asked questions. We talk about flexibility. A few more questions here. Amanda Renison asks, is it easy to switch roles from, say, an admin clerk to logistics or driving, for example? Do you know of anyone who's able to shift their trade from one to the other in Army Reserves? Have you heard of that?
It's not hard. It's just another form that will probably take time.
More training.
Yeah, more training.
More training, and I guess it just depends on how your commitment goes.
But not impossible. Like, it's very, very possible.
Yeah, not at all. Once you've got in, then if you find something that's a better fit for you, or you can bring other skills that you have outside of Army in order to, serve in a different capacity, then absolutely the Army will help you do that. You'll go through your IETs, your initial employment training again. So one of the newer cooks we've got was in the Q store doing Linda Claire's job for a long time, and then she transitioned to be a cook. So she's just gone through her basic cook training, but it's been a pretty seamless transition from one to the other.
Okay. Some more questions coming through. Scott Gill asked a pretty interesting one. If if the exercise training is interstate, is all the travel taken care of, and does it happen often? So when you need to go to Coltana, who gets you there?
Well, I'm driving if we are going most of the time. But if there's a job operator movement who will organise buses, and you'll get travel allowance as well if you are going interstate, so aeroplanes as well.
So look, I think we're just about out of time. We've churned through a whole bunch of questions. Sorry to the people that I didn't get all the questions asked. We'll see if I can try and answer some of those offline. But otherwise, you know where we are. If you've found this, you can ask questions, whether they be private message or not. Defence Jobs is the place to go to apply. Give it a go if that's what you want to do. These guys are only going to tell you the same. I did 11 years in the Army Reserve. I loved every minute of it. So it's something that you really want to have a go at, and it's flexible. There's benefits. So defencejobs.gov.au. Put in your application, and thanks for joining us. So we'll sign off from the cool, cold rooms of downtown Broadmeadows, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.